The conversation that hurts you most at work may be the one you never heard. You walk into a room and the room tells on itself. The talking stops too fast. Somebody suddenly becomes deeply invested in a coffee cup that has already been stirred into submission. Somebody says, "Anyway," in the tone people use when the truth just dove behind a couch. Nobody says, "Good morning, we were just discussing you," in a weird way. That would be too honest and apparently terrible for office morale. But you just know, or at least your body thinks it knows. Your stomach drops, your shoulders tighten, and your mind starts building a courtroom in about 3 seconds. What did I walk into? What did they hear? What version of me was in this room before I was? That feeling is not always paranoia. Sometimes it is your nervous system reading the temperature of the room. And here's the part we need to name. A toxic workplace is not always built on one dramatic explosion. Sometimes it is built by one unchallenged conversation at a time. One hallway comment, one group text, one side conversation, one "I probably should not say this, but..." Now that sentence, by the way, is often wisdom trying to interrupt before the damage begins. There is an old story often attributed to Socrates. We don't have a verified ancient transcript of him saying it exactly this way, but the wisdom is useful. And before you carry a story about someone else, ask these 3 questions. Is it true? Is it good? Is it useful? Keep those close. Today, I want to show you why your workplace feels toxic and how to stop feeding it, because noise becomes culture when nobody interrupts it. Welcome to I Am Built for Pressure. We are building clarity under pressure. And today we are in the first move of the clear system. Cut the noise. When a workplace makes you wonder where you stand, your brain does not treat that like harmless office trivia. It touches belonging, safety, respect, fairness, and control. That is why a toxic room can follow you home even when the meeting ended hours ago. Not every conversation deserves oxygen. Some conversations need a boundary before they become culture. You are not weak because the room affects you. Human beings are not built like office furniture. We are not designed to sit under fluorescent lights, absorb vague tension, decode side-eye, pretend nothing is happening, and then answer emails like our nervous system is not doing gymnastics under the desk. A toxic workplace often gives you 2 jobs. There is the job of your calendar. Then there is the hidden job, scanning the room for safety. Who is upset? Who knows something I don't know? Can I speak freely here? Will this be respected without my context? Do I still belong, or am I being quietly moved to the edge of the room? The hidden job is exhausting. When those questions stay unanswered, the mind starts filling in the blanks. And under pressure, people rarely fill blanks with grace. That is why we need clarity. But first, we need to define toxic carefully, because not everything hard deserves that label. So let's talk about what toxic is and what toxic is not. The word toxic gets used for almost everything now. Someone gives direct feedback and it's toxic. A meeting starts on time and apparently that's toxic. The office coffee tastes like it was brewed inside a printer cartridge. Well, we might need a committee formed to take care of that. But not everything hard is toxic. Accountability is not automatically toxic. Correction is not automatically toxic. Conflict is not automatically toxic. Sometimes clarity hurts before it helps. Toxicity is different. Toxicity is a pattern that makes truth harder to tell, trust harder to build, responsibility harder to carry, and clarity harder to keep. It shows up as gossip, blame, fear, passive aggression, favoritism, unclear expectations, meetings after the meeting, and people smiling in public while prosecuting each other in private. If you're dealing with harassment, discrimination, threats, abuse, retaliation, illegal behavior, or real harm, this episode is not a substitute for HR, legal counsel, counseling, professional help, or qualified support. Please go to the right person or right people for help. This is not smile through the dysfunction and call it maturity. No, maturity tells the truth. And for many people, though, daily toxicity is not one huge explosion. It is a steady drip, and the drip often starts with a sentence. Now, allow me to tell you a real story. I'm going to keep the details vague because real people deserve protection, but I have watched this pattern in workplaces, ministry teams, volunteer groups, and school settings. The setting changes, but the pattern stays painfully familiar. A certain person was not in the room, and a conversation started about them. At first, it sounded like concern, and concern can wear a very nice jacket. It can carry a notebook, and it knows how to sound responsible. Somebody said, "I am just trying to understand what happened." Or, "Has anyone else noticed this?" Or, "I do not want to be negative, but..." Nobody thought we are feeding toxicity. It felt normal. It felt like processing. It felt like relief. Then the shift happened. A question became a conclusion. A concern became a character judgment. A frustration became a story. And before long, the person who was not in the room had been tried, convicted, sentenced, and assigned a parking space in everyone's imagination. That is what happens when pressure leaks into conversation without clarity. Then the person walked in, and suddenly the room became polite. Everybody sounded like they had just enrolled in a webinar called Respectful Collaboration in a Multi-Stakeholder Environment. Very touching, very suspicious, but the damage had already started. That person was physically present, but emotionally, the room had already built a version of them without them. That is why gossip can feel like connection while quietly destroying trust. Now, there is an older word for this: backbiting. And backbiting is talking negatively about someone who is not present in a way that does not move toward truth, goodness, usefulness, responsibility, or resolution. And here is the uncomfortable part. Most of us don't know how to interrupt that moment without sounding harsh, awkward, or self-righteous. But silence has a cost too. So let's come back to Socrates. The story goes that someone came to Socrates with news about another person. Before Socrates let that story into the room, he asked the speaker to pass it through 3 filters. First, is it true? Not, did I hear it? Or, does it sound possible? Or not, did someone say it with the confidence of a person holding a clipboard? Is it true? What did I see? What did I hear? And what can be verified? Or what am I assuming? The first filter protects reality. Second, is it good? Good does not mean we don't say hard things, but hard truth can be good. A private correction can be good, and reporting harm can be good. But naming a pattern can be good. Good means the conversation is aimed at what is healthy, honest, protective, restorative, or wise. Emotional revenge wearing a concern costume is not good. Third, is it useful? Does it move the issue toward the right person, the right room, the right process, or the right next step? Now, useful does not mean juicy. Useful means it moves us toward clarity, responsibility, or resolution. If it is not true, not good, and not useful, then why do we carry it into the room? And that is the reveal. The problem is not only that toxic conversations happen. The problem is that we keep giving them a place to sit. We pull up a chair, offer them coffee, ask if they need Wi-Fi, then we act surprised when they move into the culture. So let me ask you a question. Why do we feed the thing we dislike? Now, let's be honest about why we do it. Most people do not feed workplace toxicity because they wake up and say, "Today, I would like to become the human version of mildew." Most people do it because pressure has nowhere healthy to go. When people feel unheard, they talk sideways. When people feel powerless, they form alliances. When people feel unclear, they fill in gaps. When people feel alone, gossip can feel like companionship. That is the emotional hook of a toxic conversation. It offers a quick relief. And finally, somebody else knows. The ache is real. The ache of, I do not know where to take this. The ache of, nobody listens when I say it clearly. The ache of, I need someone to know that I'm not crazy. The ache deserves care, but the ache cannot drive the culture. Relief is not the same as resolution. A side conversation may lower your pressure for 5 minutes, but it can raise the temperature of the room for 5 weeks. So ask this without shame. Where is my pressure leaking into conversation instead of becoming clarity? Research keeps confirming that this is not a small issue. iHire's 2026 Toxic Workplace Trends report found that 68.9% of surveyed U.S. workers had worked for an employer they considered toxic, with poor leadership and poor communication among the recurring drivers. Workplace gossip has also been studied and is a factor connected with employee mental health and workplace behavior. So this is just not people being nicer. That is too thin. This is about clarity, trust, and pressure. Pressure creates noise, and if we do not cut the noise starts building the culture. Now let's talk about processing versus poisoning. Now we need a distinction, because otherwise this episode becomes a break room poster with better lighting. And there is a difference between processing and poisoning. Processing says, I need help understanding what happened so I can respond wisely. Poisoning says, I need you to feel what I feel so I do not have to carry this alone. Processing moves toward clarity. Poisoning circulates heat. Processing has a container. Poisoning spills. Healthy processing has 3 things: a boundary, a purpose, and a next step. A boundary: I am talking to the right person, not just the nearest person. A purpose: I am trying to get clarity, not applause. And a next step: this conversation is going somewhere better than where it started. Poisoning has no landing gear. It circles the airport, burns fuel, and makes everyone nervous. Processing asks the question, what is true? What is mine? What needs to happen next? Poisoning asks, can you believe them? Everybody knows. I'm just saying, and I'm just saying has done a lot of damage for a phrase wearing such comfortable shoes. So we are not talking about becoming conflict avoidant. We are talking about becoming clarity oriented. The question is not, can I ever say something negative? The question is, does this conversation pass the filter? Is it true? Is it good? Is it useful? And if it's true, but not useful here, can we move it to the right room? So what do you actually say when the conversation starts drifting? If someone starts gossiping and you suddenly stand up and announce, I summon the ancient wisdom of Socrates, people may call a meeting about you. No, keep it normal, keep it human, and keep it clear. For true, ask, do we know that for sure? For good, ask, what would be the healthy way to handle this? For useful, ask, who actually needs to be in this conversation? Is this a direct conversation, a leadership issue, an HR issue, or something we need to stop repeating? Most workplace conversations need one of 3 rooms. Room 1, the direct room. If it is safe and appropriate, talk to the person, not about the person. Room 2, the responsibility room. If there is harm, a pattern, a policy issue, retaliation, discrimination, threats, or abuse, take it to the right leadership, HR, legal counseling, or qualified support, because you don't want to try to solve a serious wound with a clever hallway sentence. Room 3, the boundary room. If it is a rumor, heat, assumption, or character assassination, stop repeating it. That gives the conversation somewhere to go. And yes, sometimes it will make the room awkward. Well, let it be awkward. Awkward is not always bad. Sometimes awkward is the sound of culture changing gears. Now, what do you do if you're carrying this type of hurt? Because a filter is not a band-aid for a wound. If workplace toxicity has been wearing you down, hear this plainly. You are not weak because the room affects you. It is exhausting to read faces before you can relax. It is exhausting to wonder whether your words will be repeated without your context. Resolution does not mean you magically stop caring. Resolution means you recover agency. So start here. Name what is happening without exaggerating it. Document patterns when the situation calls for it. Talk to the right person when it is safe and wise. Use the right process when the issue is serious. And stop asking side conversations to heal what only clarity, courage, and appropriate support can address. You may not be able to fix the whole workplace today, but you can stop letting the noise decide who you become inside it. The goal is not to become untouched. The goal is to become clear. So what do you do if you're the leader in the room and if you lead people? Because this may sting a little. Leaders can feed it when they reward the loudest person with the most access. They feed it when they let anonymous criticism steer public decisions. They feed it when they allow people who are saying to become organizational evidence. Well, who are people? How many? Did they say it, or did one person just mention it in the hallway while passing by? Leaders feed toxicity when they avoid hard conversations until that hallway becomes the real meeting room. They feed it when they tolerate disrespect because the person is talented. They feed it when they confuse peacekeeping with peacemaking. Peacekeeping says, let us avoid this tension. Peacemaking says, let us tell the truth in a way that makes healing and responsibility possible. Those are not the same thing. And here's the Monday morning leadership practice. Do not accept heat without clarity. If someone brings you a concern, ask, what happened? What is affected? What pattern are we seeing? Who has already been talked to? What would resolution look like? What is the next right step? That does not dismiss people. It dignifies the concern by moving it toward truth. Now, for those of us who lead from faith, this matters deeply. Words are not neutral, and words can heal, clarify, and they can bless. Words can also divide, distort, and drain the life out of a room. A careless sentence can change the temperature of a whole room, and a wise sentence can too. So the question is not only, what am I allowed to say? The better question is, what kind of culture are my words helping create? That question will pasture you if you let it. Now, at the beginning, I said the conversation that hurts you most at work may be the one you never heard. But here's the hope. You do not have to hear every conversation to decide what kind of person you will be in the next one. Noise becomes culture when nobody interrupts it. And here's the tool. Is it true? Is it good? Is it useful? That is not a cute quote for a break room poster. That is a pressure tool. Pressure will always create noise. Noise will always look for a room. The question is, will we keep giving it one? No, you may not be able to fix the entire workplace today. You may not be able to change every leader, correct every system, or stop every group text from becoming a small emotional casino. But you can stop feeding the noise. You can refuse to turn frustration into entertainment. You can tell the truth without poisoning the room. You can say, I hear the pressure, but I am not going to let this conversation make us less clear, less honest, or less healthy. That is not weakness. That is leadership. That is pressure with clarity, and that is cut the noise. I'm not building this because pressure no longer affects me. I'm building this because pressure has taught me what clarity is worth. And clarity is worth protecting in the rooms where we work, serve, lead, worship, teach, parent, and live. So this week, ask, what conversation am I feeding? What conversation am I avoiding? What conversation needs to pass through the filter before it becomes culture? If this helps you lead and live with more clarity, subscribe and stay with me through the first season. In the comments, write the filter you need most right now. True, good, or useful. Next episode, we are talking about burnout at work, why complaining drains you, and what to do instead. Because complaint can be a signal, but if it never becomes clarity, it becomes another form of pressure.